Hello, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Asia Community Meetup of Singapore in April 2020. I hope all of you are coping well in the current COVID-19 situation. And today I'm glad that there are a lot of speakers and all of you joining us today to bring some positive energy to our community by bringing back our monthly meetup. Okay. Let me see. There's some noise over there. Okay. I'm Chun Lin, the event co-organizer of this community. So I'm happy to have my teammates Marvin and Riza today to help run this meetup together. So I think Riza is already on YouTube, so you can say hi to him. You can always reach out to us on Twitter if you next time you would like to join us as speakers or you have some ideas to share in our monthly meetup. So today we also have another special guest from Microsoft. His name is Timothy Tan. Hello, Timothy.
Hello.
Okay, thank you. So without the support from you all, our communities cannot grow to today's scale. Yeah, same to you, Timothy. Thanks for helping us in this tough period. So a few months ago, we just celebrated our 5th year anniversary of both Singapore.net Meetup community and Azure Community Singapore. Woohoo! So Marvin actually shared this new initiative, which is meant to encourage more of you to join and share about different knowledge, ideas, or even your hobby projects. I haven't invited those who sign up, but I will try to do so soon. So if you are interested to contribute to our community, please sign up through the URL shown here, or if you have phone, just scan the QR code. It should work. So in addition, if you like to code and you love to build something cool, please drop by our community GitHub. Currently, we have some projects from desktop application to form recognizer to PowerShell. Or if you have some other project that you would like to share with the rest of the community, feel free to do so. You can always submit them to our GitHub. So in our community, we welcome all sorts of meetup. Some recommendations are listed over here, including an online meetup like what we are doing now. Okay, so this time should be our 5th session. I actually lost count, but we do it quite a lot of times already. So yeah, please, in order to keep things running smoothly, please remember to guard your privacy and abide the community guidelines. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, and speakers will answer them after the sharing session. And finally, please subscribe to our channel. I think I need the number to hit 1,000 before we can do some crazy things to unlock more features. Thank you. So today we are proud to have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Eng Soon. So for those who have been with us in the meetup, Eng Soon should be a familiar name to all of you. So today he will be talking about Microsoft Azure Sentinel, which is just announced last year by Satya during the Ignite, I think. So for those who are interested in SIEM, as I shared earlier in the email, it's called the Security Information Event Management. His talk will be interesting to you all. After that, we have Priyanka. So she will talk about AI for better. So AI does not only entail automation, robotics, or even like replace your jobs. So she will share more about how we can use AI to build a better society and better life. Finally, we have our third speaker, Dileepa, who is also Microsoft MVP, to talk about essentials of cloud migration. So if your organization would like to learn how to quickly take advantage of the benefit of the cloud to migrate, his talk is for you. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to Eng Soon.
Okay,
Eng Soon,
thank you. Great. Okay. Everyone can hear me, right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi everyone, I am Eng Soon, Microsoft MVP. I think you all know me already. I no need to introduce myself again. Okay, today I know you all work from home. Thank you for attending this meetup. I will share about the Azure Sentinel. Maybe you are in the cybersecurity team. You will know about what is meant by SIEM or SOAR. Okay, let's start about the slide. Okay, today organizations are faced with the incredibly difficult task of trying to protect their expanded digital estate from increasing the cyber threat. The move to the cloud and a mobile workforce have pushed the border of your estate beyond the boundary of your physical network. For example, like yesterday, you already start from work from home. Do you know that a lot of things you can't access without a VPN? You need to connect with the VPN, only can access to your company database, company network, company application. Then, did you know that is this COVID-19? Do you know the increase of case of cyber attack in the world? Do you know that? I'm sure you all don't know because from some report from the India, from the Russia, US, and also the China, they always mention in the report. From the report say that this is from the COVID-19 that they have found that the increase of the cyber attack in the world is almost their cybersecurity people can't cope with it. That's why they also work in front line to protect with our data. Okay. This also creates a significant challenge of your security operation team who are tasked with defending your extended estate. Security data explosion. As your digital estate grows, so does the volume of security data. In fact, of 76% of organization report and increases, and much of it is coming from in the cloud. So pumping into the legacy on-premise system just does not make a ton of sense, and that volume is just going to keep growing. Data is full of machine learning models that have become so critical to threat detection. The model need both more signals and more diverse signals to show up their defense. Enterprise has deployed dozens of security products, each producing a large volume of alerts. In isolation, these products may have high false positive rates and poor response prioritization, resulting in defending alert noise. As a result, organizations report that nearly half of alerts are never investigated. Part of the reason from the alert to fall through the threat is a massive shortage in security professionals. A recent report by CSO magazine showed that this global talent shortage will increase to 3.5 million unfilled security jobs by 2021. That means that in future, we shortage of programmer, we also shortage of the cybersecurity professional. If you want to shift from programmer to cybersecurity professional, please let me know. I can introduce you to the professional. The cloud also can help to manage the complexity of the expanding digital estate. It simplifies and makes security easy to manage. Hardening the power of the cloud will set your security operation team free of IT work and help them focus on security work with no limit. The next generation of AI and automation in the cloud help to supercharge of your work. It will leverage the large-scale intelligence available in the cloud and make it work for you. So now I will introduce you about Azure Sentinel, our Microsoft new intelligent cloud native SIEM, Security Information Event Management. What are the Azure Sentinel I can offer? The first one is meet your defender where they are deliver instant value. You can choose from hundreds of built-in dashboard, hunting a query, analytics, playbook, and more. Guide hunting and investigation experience help security analysts of all skill level get their work done. Of course, Azure Sentinel offer the extensibility you need to customize and create your own dashboard, analytics, and workbook, and also even offer integration with professional-grade tools like Jupyter Notebook. The second one, enable you to collect, store, and analyze all your security data with cloud scale economy. Scale automatically as the data volume and compute need grows, incremental growth, or burst during an incident. No infrastructure cost or upfront commitment, only pay for what you use. No infrastructure setup or maintenance. You also can agility to add data as you need. The last one, leverage AI and automation as force multiplier for your SOC, Security Operations Center. You can detect the threat you may have otherwise missed. Fuse alert into actionable prioritized incident to reduce alert. Then the last one, apply automation to reduce manual process and speed the response. For example, I think you are first time here that integrate AI with the security. With the Azure Sentinel, you can it will be prioritize the alert for you so that you will not miss the alert that you need to care about it. Okay, Azure Sentinel also delivered an end-to-end solution for security operation. Start with collecting all of your data and getting instant insight into that data via workbook and also query. Begin applying analytics to that data to find real threat from that sea of data. Hunt through all your data using built-in exploratory query. Use bookmark and live stream tools to track notable events and monitor new activity. Manage and investigate incident using graph and timeline view. Automate investigation and remediation playbook. All of this powered by a community of security analysts and backed by Microsoft security experts who leverage their vast experience defending Microsoft services to contribute analytic query, playbook, and more. The first one, we go for the collect visibility. The first one, visibility. You can one-click integration with Microsoft solution, for example, like O365 and Azure AD and so on. Data connector for growing list of other technology like on-premise. You can integrate with on-premise or cross-cloud, for example, like AWS. Support for standard log format. Specialized taxi and graph connector for threat intelligent data. REST API for connecting cloud solution. Proven log analytics platform with more than 10 PB of daily data ingestion. Other than that, you also can get the powerful insight like interactive dashboard, combine multiple kinds of visualization, including graph and map. Provide deep insight into a single data source or combining multiple sources. The last one is powered by KQL, key query language queries, making workflow easy to build and customize. Okay, let's come to the second one, the analytics. How to leverage the analytics to detect the threat. More than 100 built-in alert rules were developed by Microsoft and community security experts. A wizard enables you to create your own analytic rules using KQL query. Threshold can be set to alert when activity level exceeds normal pattern. Correlation event with your threat intelligence, and now with Microsoft Intel about malicious URL. Microsoft has unparalleled view of evolving threat landscape. Customer can now match Microsoft URL with the network log, match with the Microsoft indicator added to the table for use like any other indicator. Retrospective loopback that match with against historical event data and multi event will be coming soon. The last one is alert can be used to trigger automated playbook. Now, how the benefit integrate with the machine learning without the complexity? Microsoft had applied proven off-the-shelf machine learning model for identify suspicious login across Microsoft Identity Service to discover malicious SSH access. By using transfer learning from existing machine learning model, Azure Sentinel can detect anomalies from a single dataset with accuracy. In addition, Microsoft used machine learning technique, the core fusion, to connect the data from multiple sources like Azure AD, anomalies, login, and suspicious Office 365 activity to detect 35 different threads that span different points on tier change. The chart on the right-hand side, the chart on the right-hand side is based on the real-life example that show how Azure Sentinel machine learning model are able to analyze millions of signals to highlight small number of high severity threats. You can simply connect to your data and learning from the beginning. The third one, hunting. The most important is hunting. Because without hunting a threat, you can't solve the issue. With the Azure Sentinel, provide the built-in threat hunting query developed by Microsoft and community experts. Run threat hunting query and see the result without prior query experience. Create your own threat hunting query unique to your environment using KQL. Start investigation directly from the hunting query. You also can bookmark enable you to flag the notable data for further investigation, annotate and visualize bookmark data in an investigation graph. You also add bookmark to enrich existing incident or create a new one, and receive notification of new threat-related activity using Livestream. You can now launch the Azure Notebook directly from the Azure Sentinel, making it easy to create and execute the Jupyter Notebook to analyze your data. Notebook combine the live code, graphic, visualization, and text, making them a valuable tool for threat hunter. Choose from the built-in gallery notebook developed by Microsoft Security Analysts or import other GitHub to get started. These notebooks are the same professional strength hunting solution Microsoft own threat hunter use every day. It also hosts in the Azure cloud, so accessible anytime from from anywhere. Investigation workflow and data can be saved and shareable in HTML format or JSON. Query the Azure Sentinel data directly in the notebook and bring external data source such as threat intelligence into your investigation. Also, it also supports the Python, SQL, R, and other languages. Now we go for the incident. With a, you can start with a start and track investigation from the prioritized actionable security incident, container for alert events, and bookmark related to a particular security threat, automatically created from alerts or initiated by a security analyst when threat hunting, can be assigned to analyze for further investigation and status can be tracked. Analysts also can easily tag the incident and add comment. The last one is trigger automatically playbook from the incident. How you visualize the attack and also the impact. Azure Sentinel can automatically correlate entity across the different data source and alert. Expand the scope of your investigation using built-in exploration query. View a timeline related alert and event and bookmark. And also you can click on any node to see detailed information, gain deep insight into related entity, user, domain, and more. Azure Sentinel customer can now use the power of the URL detonation to enrich alert and quickly discover the threat related to malicious URL. When creating a scheduled alert, any URL data in the query result can be made to a new URL entity type. Whenever alert containing a URL entity is generated, the map of the URL will be automatically detonated and the investigation graph will be immediately enriched with the detonation result. A verdict final URL and screenshot can be used to quickly access to a potential threat. To use these features, make sure you have enabled URL login for your secure web gateway, web proxy, firewall, legacy IDS. You can try this feature during the preview at no cost, but now already public available in the Azure Sentinel. I think this one will be is start charging the cost already. Okay, now everything we need a lot of cybersecurity expert. Now we need sometimes we still need automation. Without automation, then the cybersecurity workers they need to do a lot of work. Okay, with you can integrate your Azure Sentinel with the Azure Logic app and fully integrate with the Azure Sentinel. Build automated and scalable playbook that integrate across the tools. Choose from a library of sample or create your own using more than 200 plus built-in connector plus generated connector like HTTPS. You also can trigger a playbook from an alert or incident investigation. That's why you need to learn about the Logic app also. Other than that, please, if you already have the, you are the PIC to in charge your Azure subscription, please start with the Azure Security Center and also Azure Sentinel. You can learn more with the Azure Sentinel with the website below. And now we go for the demo. I will play a video because this one I just do a sample demo that I had done it before, but if actual world it will be a lot of that, a lot of the data inside, but the one is my own company data, but this one is not include the my company data, but teach you how to onboard to the Azure Sentinel. Okay, let's play the video. Okay, as you can see that how you start with the Azure Sentinel, you just search for, then add your Azure Sentinel workspace. Then now you need to connect with other things, other connector like Azure Active Directory. You just click connect because a lot of things that you need to know. It provides you a step by step. Then I connect another one, Azure Activity. Then and also Azure Active Directory Identity Protection. Just simply connect. You can go to a notebook. You can get in the log and view in the workbook. Then so that you can see all the activity. Yeah, this is just a simple demo from the Azure AD sign-in log, so that every time who do what and in the Azure subscription, then you will know how they come into the Azure subscription. Okay, that's all for my demo and today's presentation. Here with the resources that you can see, I will share it later in the Meetup group. You can join the community if you are cybersecurity expert or you want to start the Azure Sentinel. And also please refer to my blog. And also my YouTube channel. I will share about Azure security and also Azure Sentinel and also Azure governance. That's all for my presentation. I will pass to
Eng Soon,
yes.
I think there is question on.
Okay.
I think from my. Wow, let's see someone.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. May I, how is Azure different from previous security center? Under what circumstance good to use Sentinel instead of security center? For small companies, Sentinel seems be too much. Okay. For my answer for that one, for SME, if you're small enough, if only local company like NTUC, if they don't have overseas branch, then you use Azure Security Center enough already. If like for example like my company, Big Four company, they have only US in charge the Azure subscription. Then and distribute give subscription to the different branch, like for example like Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and also Thailand. Then you need to use the Azure Sentinel. Because previously, each branch we have our own Azure Sentinel. Azure subscription, so that we don't know. So that every time we will have a secret, because some branch of the company does not have the cybersecurity expert, so that even then someone get the data from the Azure, we also don't know. So that we all give give only one the main campus people to ingest the Azure secret to ingest our Azure subscription, so that we better use the Azure Sentinel. If small company, I suggest only use the Azure Security Center. If I wrong, then please let me know. Okay, still got any question? No?
Is there any? Okay, I think Priyanka is ready, so we can proceed.
Okay,
thank you, Eng Soon.
Hello?
Yes, Priyanka.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eng Soon. That was such an interesting talk. Let me adjust my volume settings a bit. Okay, and here we go.
There's a little pop-up at the right-hand side. Need you to.
Yes, I will. Yes. That's the Meetup pop-up. Yeah. So is it visible now, the screen?
Yes, good.
Okay, sure. So hello and good evening, everyone, and wish all of you are safe and stay safe. And wishing for these times to get over sooner. So we'll start with the topic for AI for better today, in which we'll also discuss about how AI is being used for COVID scenarios. But yeah, not to be a spoil sport for the topic. Yeah, so agenda which we are going to have today is the different types of AI which we will be studying, the how different types of AI are helping us across various domains to make life better. For those who know me, I am the head of innovation and technology, and also a public speaker for AI and ML, especially for the Microsoft technology stack. And I work a lot in natural language processing domain, so with speech to text and text analytics and speech recognition and a lot of unorganized text data. So normally when I speak in meetups about topics related to data science or machine learning algorithms, or in panel discussions regarding AI, the one question which I keep on getting asked at the end is always about, will AI eat up jobs? Will AI bring in a chaos, or will AI foster a world where humans are secondary, or human intellect is secondary to machine intellect? So I thought, maybe it is time to do a topic which addresses these concerns, and that's why I digress from my normal talks where I normally talk about chatbots or hardcore machine learning algorithms, and let us delve into this. Having said so AI as we know it, which is what I was mentioning just right now. So when we speak of AI as we know it today, the thing that immediately pops to mind is robotics, gaming, of course machine learning, some aspects like which is being faster, accurate. We talk of automation. When we say AI, the immediate application which jumps to our mind is about driverless cars, and the negative aspects, of course, which will generating unemployment or killing the low skilled unorganized labor sector. The other aspects of our imagination going a bit forward are sci-fi movies. Maybe the next jump would be rise of the machines, then machines revolting against humanity, and finally an apocalypse kind of a situation where as we see it in all the futuristic movies. But anyways, So, before we even delve into the benefits for AI, it would be really, really worth mentioning about the epic AI failures, just so that we set our mind at rest about how AI is not going to usurp human intelligence, and some of the really notable AI failures. And if you just browse through quickly the slide, it mentions all the who's who in the AI domain today. We have all our crime de la crime companies: Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, IBM, who at some or the other point of time designed an API that was absolutely failing miserably. So when you look at Microsoft's chatbot Tay, it was supposed to be a teenage bot, and it was supposed to learn. It was deployed and it was supposed to learn as it kept on chatting on Twitter. So it was a Twitter bot, and it was supposed to be a friendly teenage bot. But they did not expect the scenario where users bombarded it with so much of junk and so much of malicious data that within 24 hours the AI bot got corrupted and unraveled from being your average friendly teenage bot to speaking a language of supporting Hitler's genocide and anti-Semitic tweets and stuff like that. Then we move on to Amazon's recruitment AI. So, if this is a very interesting topic because this also talks about the bias in AI, like a human bias, like the biases which we have, the prejudices which we inherit, they are passed on to the AI as well. So, Amazon's recruitment AI basically was supposed to, remove the HR headache of sifting through the resumes and then picking out the best one and then scheduling the interviews and stuff. The way it was programmed was whenever it wanted to pick out a prospective candidate for any job posting or advertising, it picked out a white male candidate. So every time the closest match was a Caucasian male candidate. That was because the program was devised that way. So all our human biases which we have, or the data which was fed to that program for potentially training it for recruitment process, was maybe that kind of data. So let's not get there. But yeah, I mean, that was a humongous failure of epic proportions. Then we move on to Apple and Goldman Sachs Apple Card scenario, where I mean, if you look at that misogynist card, yeah, it bears meaning here because the card was supposed to give you credit score based on your whatever, like financial resources. And then the card always ended up giving the female gender a lower credit score, irrespective of the fact that you might be the wife of Apple CEO, or maybe a businessman. But the spouse, the male gender, always got a better credit rating on his card, whereas the wife always got a lesser credit rating, to the extent that Goldman Sachs and Apple had to face a lot of I think legal charges, and yeah, I mean, they had to withdraw this. And for IBM's Watson, so in 2012, IBM's Watson was the next big thing and supposed to predict and suggest treatment for cancer. But it ended up suggesting a treatment which was quite opposite to the scenario of the patient, and had the entire medical industry running after it, calling it variety of colorful names, which better not mentioned here. So yeah, I mean, you see that even in 2012, where AI was supposedly at a very good level, still we had these kind of AI failures. Now when we look at the benefits of AI, which I know how Microsoft and Amazon and Google and Apple and IBM are using it, to harnessing it to make lives better, to make the environment better. Let's have a bird's eye view of those things. So there are many innovations that AI continue to drive, and because of the applications which AI brings in, the computing power, the machine learning capabilities, which all the algorithms and AI and the storage they bring in, they open different dimensions. Like, we can't even think of the applications that these could be probable applications of AI. For example, when you think of, I mean, did you think of something like a system where so building a wind chime that could potentially alert us to rising pollution levels? So the air around us, the maybe the density of the pollutants in the air around us might cause the wind chime to ring in a different way, alarming us about the rising pollution levels. This is something very different application, right? But Microsoft and Google and companies are working on such kind of diverse applications, or for AI to mitigate climate change, or for AI to explore various other storage facilities. Like we have this data explosion, and in this data explosion, the data is increasing, and our storage also is increasing exponentially. So how to handle this? So store the data in smaller sizes, in smaller dimensions. So these kind of applications for storage, for space explorations, for scientific discoveries, for global peace and harmony, even that is AI for community, AI for cultural heritage. So these are opening a plethora of wider dimensions, rather than only looking into industrial automation or robotics, or those mundane, those routine applications. The way these companies are exploiting AI are out of the scope of what we routinely are used to thinking AI of being used for. So let us look into some of the interesting AI initiatives, and few of them would be: we have AI for Earth, we have AI for accessibility, we have AI for culture and heritage, we have AI for humanitarian action, and we have AI for health. When we look at AI for Earth, there are four applications, and we will look at some interactive demonstrations of these applications as well. So, AI for Earth has biodiversity, climate change, agriculture, and water. Now, when we look at biodiversity, right? So as standing today, we know that there is a accelerating loss of species. So we are losing the biodiversity. So now there are very few scientists, researchers there to identify those dwindling populations of these species. But how to make this data of these rare species accessible to them, the habitats of these species or the sightings of this species to be reported quickly to these key decision makers? How do we ensure these things? So AI can be used for that. For climate change, imagine a scenario where, if AI could tell us that what climate impact is happening on our forest areas, and how to mitigate those changes and preserve the green cover for future generations. For water, we also know that the population is exploding at a rate in at which the current supply is not going to support us. So for such a exponentially growing population, how to design water scenarios, rainwater harvesting or ground table water increasing scenarios, for designing other solutions, alternate usage of energy for reducing the usage of water, wastage of water. So all these things are also possible by AI. How we will see that? Agriculture. In agriculture, again, to enable agriculture to sustainably and in a nourishing way fulfill the need of this growing population. So it has to be exactly telling you what kind of soil this is, and what kind of crop in what kind of climatic conditions would yield the best crop, or would yield the best produce. So these kind of things, if farmers know the quality of seeds to plant, the amount of water to be put in, the seasonality of the crops, imagine, like, if they are always thinking of optimizing the produce, like that's the final goal of AI, right? Optimize your output. So if that could be the goal for AI, even in all of these scenarios, just optimize the output in the best possible way to reach the goal in the least number of steps. If that approach, if somehow can be fed to all the scenarios, it would of course make life lot better. So for biodiversity, if for nature lovers, if we could turn them into scientists who collect the images of those species and then they can be sent further for scientific research. So as an enthusiast and ornithologist, for example, if I am studying rare bird samples, and then I might need to capture those samples and send them to the specific researchers for their input on habitats and migratory patterns of birds. Imagine that, it should be very easy for them to access this data and for me to capture the images and send to them. And I should also be careful of the fact that I'm not spamming, so I'm not taking any random image and sending to the scientist. So AI has to be the bridge between me and the key decision makers to see the image, recognize whether this is legit endangered species, and then forward the data further. Then predicting population fluctuations, migratory patterns, and then again encroachment. So again mitigating those things, that this was an area of the natural habitat last year, but now it has been encroached upon, and studying those patterns of how it is going to affect the species. All these things and much more are possible because of the applications of AI. For mapping forests, we for actual I mean for AI for mapping forest, we use the machine learning to predict the impact of climate change, wildfires, tornadoes, and other relevant risks. So we had this very huge and very disturbing Australian bushfires this year. So keeping that in mind, if AI could predict about these kind of raging fires, they could be mitigated in some way or the other, or the damage which they could possibly inflict could be minimized. And so for AI for agriculture also, we could predict the pest infestations, the surplus rainfall, the drought conditions, and what crops to maybe harvest in these conditions, and then quantifying the pollinator food resources to ensure long term harvests. For AI for agriculture also, again the impact of bees for horticulture and for fruit farming are also one of the upcoming and quite vividly researched fields of AI. So in AI for water, as I was I was telling you, the monitoring of the glacial melt for mapping the increasing water tables due to global warming, then predicting heavy rainfall, droughts, famines, groundwater tables. All this information should also be made accessible. So there are resources in cloud on in the form of image recognition, text analytics, DevOps, and containers and Kubernetes, Docker is being deployed for all these kind of applications. So just let us look at the quick demo for how biodiversity and water and agriculture are already being used and by some of our AI champions, and how they are powering the innovation. So these are the four aspects we talked about: biodiversity, climate change, agriculture, and water. So when we talk of biodiversity, this is how it will give you information. So let's say as an enthusiast or as a naturalist, I'm going to click this and going to send it to the specific data center for more information. This is how it will recognize the image and it will list the image, the species, the population. It is stable, not at risk. Did you know some of the interesting facts for that species? So let us look at a few other things. It's not that it is also trying to figure out what it looks like. The maximum match was the green iguana. It could also be a 4% chance a mountain horn lizard and stuff like that. So even that data is being relayed to me, that it may be a 65% surety about this species, the population, and more other more interesting aspects. Let us look at the application when it comes to the forest mapping. So you can see that what AI can detect in a forest. In a forest, AI can detect the entire ecosystem which is there, the green cover. So amongst the green cover also, it is classifying the type of trees. So oak 60%, maple 18%, and the average rainfall, the average tree height, the geospatial indices, the latitude, longitude, and the region where it is situated. Okay, so these are the Western Rocky Mountains. Again, what are the composition of the trees, what kind of rainfall it is getting, and in future climatic conditions, how it will be affected, how the, so you can prepare mitigation plans for unwarranted scenarios if you have already all this kind of data, and that's also very interactive, right? Let us quickly also look at the agriculture. So I was telling, that if we can tell the farmer about the type of soil, the type of land, and how exactly how to grow the most food per acre, then how to do that. You can see the number of landscapes which we have plains, we have forest, we have coastal, we have urban landscape, and then when we click on it, it would tell us the type of the soil we have, the composition and the nutrient levels for those compositions like potassium, calcium. So you can easily determine what kind of crop would be harvested here, and that would be beneficial in this kind of a scenario. Just imagine the level of insightful information this is giving us. For water, yes. So just imagine that, for water, if we could predict the algal formation in Antarctica, right, and then how it is going to impact the aquatic life, that also is possible. Okay, so now just see, it is tracking for the algal information in Guatemala Lake Atitlan. And then it is giving you the facts about that algae formation, what is the environmental impact for this thing. Then it is the South China Sea Pacific Ocean, same thing, like where is the algae sited, what is the environmental impact for this, for the sea life, for the ocean life, and for the marine life. And we will also see more interesting applications for AI. One which I would like to highlight here, and which we are going to discuss in our slide the next moment, is for storage. So these are the AI for Earth initiatives. Now there's also something called as AI for biological computation. So biological computation, this entails studying the genes of species, different species, and that is which is studying the genetic code and making genetic compilers out of them. So imagine, like, as programmers, you write code, then it is compiled, and then you get some output from that code, that compiled piece of code. But you can also have the possibility of modifying that code for better outcomes. I mean, that's what we call optimization, right? So if you could from our genetic code studies, if you could make such genetic circuits, so scientists could make such genetic circuits, and then potentially alter those circuits for some better outcome. So something like gene mutation. So yeah, so you can imagine the context of your superheroes, your Avengers, they have some gene mutated within them to give them some superpowers. So something on those lines, but not exactly. So this is what trying to get cure for diseases such as Alzheimer's by stimulating new brain cells, or allow plants to resist certain pests and deliver higher crop yields. So right now, even in the case for COVID-19 cure, what they are doing, they are studying the sequence, the genetic code, and they are trying to break the genetic code for the virus. So this is what, when we are looking for biological computation, this is what basically we are trying to achieve, like build a genetic compiler, and then have scientists alter that compiler in a way that it could be beneficial to mitigate of certain disease, to fight a certain syndrome. And of course, possibilities of this has a lot of possibilities in stem cell research, where you could potentially grow a new organ. So let's say you are amputated, your limbs are for some reason, or they have been severed for some reason. There could be a potential application of you growing a new limb, for example, if you could stimulate the right cells by the genetic code, the correct genetic code. Now, this is an important application when we look for AI for cloud optics. So, when I mentioned earlier about our ever increasing data, so it is predicted by 2025, about 20% of the global total electricity would be used by IT and communications industry. So, and we just keep on generating more data, right? So we always fall short of storage. We always want storage in gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes. And also again we want the storage and retrieval to be faster, so always we look for latency, throughput, performance, response times. These are our daily terms which we come across. And the final goal is to store fast and retrieve fast, store more and retrieve fast. So what if we could replace the electric switches with ultra fast optical switching? So I will quickly show you a demo also for that. But then you just imagine that this is the circuit. It's like maybe a DVD size of a box, and then these are called as voxels. The dots which you see here are called as voxels, and the voxels are the one which are storing the data. So such small size disks could potentially be now used to store data, and depending on the frequencies, they would be able to quickly switch. So I will just look at the demo when I say about switching the frequencies. I am very sure that we have all heard about prism, right? The prism, which depending on the frequency of the light, it is going to bend the rays. So when I see red color, it is a particular frequency. The frequency at which the white light is bending, I see a red color. So just imagine this. And what if we could replace those electric switches with ultra fast optical switching? So, like a prism, we can control the color of the light entering it, and then we can also control from where the light will be transmitted. So, if you look at this red light, then it would be when red light enters, it will be refracted, and it will be refracted out at a different location. If green light enters, it could be refracted out of a different location. So same technology if we could have for smart optical switching, depending on your inputs and what could your output be, then imagine. So these are some of the unimagined and currently being explored possibilities for cloud optics, and it could just revolutionize the way we store our data and the way we interact with the data, the way we retrieve data. Okay, the next immediate and interesting application is fusing art and science, right? So there are three very interesting initiatives here, which is Project Florence, Project ADA, and Project Eclipse. In Project Florence, basically what you're doing is you're building an entire ecosystem where you can communicate with each and every thing which is present, so in that ecosystem. So imagine that you are having a plant next to your desktop, and then you will have an ability with AI embedded chips and communicators to actually communicate with the plant. So there could be a dialogue, like you're trying to gauge the photosynthesis happening in the plant, and you could turn it into a dialogue, like is the amount of sunlight correct for you, or is the soil quality okay for you, or is the soil lacking any nutrients. And then the AI, depending on the process which is going on inside the plant in which that program resides, will be able to communicate back to you about the process which is going inside. So this is a kind of ecosystem where humans and objects, animate and inanimate, are able to coexist and communicate. In Project ADA, it is I should say it is an optical or a visual application. So just imagine that if the room in which you could walk in could sense your mood and accordingly change the lighting. So this is something which we already have in the sense, like mood lighting, which we call it. But what if the way you are thinking could be superimposed into an architectural pattern? So your thinking could be imagined as something of a sentient being, and the thoughts which you are thinking, so if I'm in a very somber mood, maybe it could be extrapolated into some kind of a pattern, and that pattern could be built into an architectural lighting kind of a thing. I'll show you how what I mean by sentient being and how our moods will be enabled into some kind of a pattern. And then we have Project Eclipse. So Project Eclipse is what I was talking of about building wind chimes that could inform us about the the pollutant levels in the air. So these are three very very diverse and mind-boggling applications for fusing art and science with with the use of AI in in something which I have come across lately. Let us quickly look at ADA so that we get a a rough idea about what ADA does. Yeah. So just imagine, like, what if our mood could be superimposed into some pattern, right? So maybe this is my mixture of my thoughts. It is not one particular thought. It is a mixture of my thought. And it is so interesting for me to read, for the AI to read my thoughts and then put them into some kind of a pattern and make it as a visual background or a coloring or an architectural background for something. So ADA is one of the important areas of research which is going on in Microsoft, and they have really come up with diverse applications of this, like for mood lighting or for coloring or for making design patterns, right? So this is actually sensing your thoughts, and depending on the thoughts as the AI understands it. So AI understanding and comprehending my thoughts and then putting it out as some kind of a pattern, some kind of a color, some kind of a light, right? And when we talk of, yes, when we talk of Project Florence, this is what I meant, where where I could have my AI plugged it into the plant or whatever, like object which I want it to, and then I could actually be having a communication with it like a chat bot would. So like a bot would interact with me, I'm going to interact with the plant, and then this would, so whatever is the processes going on inside of the plant would be communicated back to me. So yeah, I find these are the very diverse and very interesting applications, few areas. And then we look at, so these were roughly few ideas which are yet to take shape. Some of them are in progress, some of them are being worked upon. But then we have already some AI partners or some agencies which have come up with full-fledged, full-blown projects, and they are operational. They have got an AI grant, and they are actually, working on the ground and using AI for powering their operations. So you have something called as Wild Me. So it's not Wild Me. It's it's a project where again it is used for conservation, and it uses computer vision and deep learning algorithms to scan and identify individual animals and species, right? And they are specifically used for species which are endangered or on the verge of extinction. So then again, these images or their habitat pictures are then sent to key decision makers for them to know about the habitats in which these animals are spotted, how to stop encroachment on those habitats, how to improve their natural living conditions and stuff like that. So for Wild Me, they use the following Azure services. So they are actually using text translator API, computer vision, VMs, then NLP for the natural language processing applications, and then application insights for monitoring the servers, right? So they are actually using all of these cognitive services and Azure offerings from Microsoft to power their innovation. Then there's another project called as the Ocean Observatories Initiative. So this is what they do is they, from a very high definition camera, very powerful camera, they send out images from the ocean floor to satellites, and then from the satellites these images are sent back to data centers or to workstations of scientists, from where they will seeing the ocean floor images, they will take a call upon the climate changes, the marine habitat there, the corals, whether they are decolored, or what could be the algae concentration on that. So all these things, all these things are enabled by the use of virtual machines, Kubernetes services, container registry, blob storage for storing your high definition images. And another very interesting application for that is called as PAWS, which is a protection for assistant for wildlife security. And this is for conservationists to stop poaching. and it not only to stop poaching, but it also will survey the situation, and then it will convey the best route for patrollers to take for reducing poaching, and the most used route and the most used strategies and timings for poachers to make their move and try and kill animals, and the checkposts for patrollers to visit to prevent such a crime for happening. So these are this pause is being used for rhino protection, conservation of rhinos, and then in Africa, and for forest officers to effectively monitor this crime. And then you have few other applications called as sun culture, which is for use in farming technology for Africa, farmers in Africa, to actually tell them the quality of soil and the type of crop they should be taking, the seasonality of the crops, and the nutrients which should be added to the soil in order to boost the produce. So for that, they are using IoT neural networks for the farmers to help focus their farms need and optimize their pest control and irrigation and all other actions. Now we are moving on from AI for Earth and few of the upcoming applications to AI for accessibility. So AI for accessibility is the usage of AI for guiding and for harnessing it for the usage of disabled people. Could be visually impaired, could be verbally impaired, could be deaf. So for all these, so technology should technology should make it agnostic for people using it. So it shouldn't depend on my abilities for using technology. So technology should bring all of us together. So when I'm speaking of technology, it should also empower the ones with lesser abilities to be at the same platform for on which normal people are. So this is where it will give equal access to information and opportunity for people who are regardless of how they listen or speak or write. So we have applications like Seeing AI, which is for the low vision community. So it will harness the power of AI to describe speech and text for the visually impaired people. Then there's something called as Help Picto, which is for the people who are non-verbal. So Help Picto is actually uses speech to text to generate sentences and communication. And then you have translator is for the hard for hearing people. So it will actually give you custom speech model and accuracy of real time captions. So imagine that a PowerPoint presentation is going on, but maybe you are hard of hearing, or you're too far away and you're not able to hear the PowerPoint presentation going live. Then Microsoft Translator is actually generating real time captions for what the speaker is speaking, and you can see it on the screen there. So the real time caption generator. And then you have something called as AI for humanitarian action, where AI is used for preserving culture, language, history. So one such initiative is already going on in the Museum of Paris, where AI and mixed reality, they are working together to recreate some piece of French history and then use it to educate people. So make it more vibrant, make it more interesting, so that people are aware, and that's how you ensure your even in case of languages which are going extinct, some ancient languages, some pieces of ancient literature which is going extinct, AI is being used to restore those, as a catalyst to restore those. And finally, we come to AI for health. So AI for health, as we know that it is already improving the public health across globe, unlocking innovations for tough issues. So in areas of stem cell and brain cell stimulation, in area of organ transplant. Yes, and then it also empowers researchers around the world to have greater impact on people who need it the most. And then it's in its recent use for AI for COVID studies. As you can know that in Korea it was used for the fast development of the test kit, then also about smart quarantine information system. So imagine the number of people outbound, inbound, and then the people who need to be quarantined, the people who the contact tracing for people who need to be quarantined. So all of this was made much faster and much accurate with the help of AI. Diagnosis efficiency and patient classification, as I mentioned, contact tracing, yes. and also for monitoring COVID symptoms between patients who were asymptomatic. So AI was used for monitoring the symptoms, then pattern analysis for the X-rays to detect COVID infection. So instead of so there were so many tests going on, and dearth of test kits and dearth of centers for doing the testing. So AI was brought in for quick classification of the X-rays of lungs to determine which could be potentially COVID infected, and then no contact infrared sensor for temperature screening, which is now a very common feature at all major airports and checkpoints. And Microsoft is also using AI machine learning to find COVID-19 antibodies. So this is something which is ongoing. As a footnote, while AI can really help with the COVID-19 crisis, but then again, the right input is a human key. So finally, we have to remember, and the most important thing is finally we are the ones who power the AI. So it's for the human intellect to give the first impetus for the AI to make a decision in the right direction. So yeah, here I conclude with a message that AI is not the be all end all. So yeah, while it has powerful implications, it has powerful applications, but then it is in our hands to determine how we are going to use it. So all the initiatives which we saw, the wonderful initiatives for fusing art and science, and for optical storage, or how they are being used for already AI for earth, climate changes, conservation, all this and much more, finally they bring us to a point where we can say that AI can really be used and is being used for a good and a sensitive purpose. So I would be happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you, Priyanka. Is there any question? Seems like no. So, Priyanka, do you have anything to add?
No, that's it. So thank you everyone for
Thank
attending
you.
the presentation, and have a good day. Stay safe.
You too. Thank you. So let's welcome our next speaker. Dileepa, are you ready?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm ready.
I will give the time
Can
for
hear,
you.
right?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Priyanka, for your interesting session. This is really interesting. And also thanks for inviting me, Chun Lin and Timothy, for the session today. So let me begin. Let me start my screen and roll the video first, right, from my company. Okay. Okay, let me know when you can see it. Okay, is it visible?
Not yet.
Check what's happening. Okay, let me start back again. All right. Okay, let me know when you can see, right? Get started. Can see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so let me roll my video from my company.
There's no audio then.
Let me check once again. Okay, I'm gonna start sharing back again. All right. Okay, let's get started. Okay, let me stop my screen a little bit and share back again. All right. All right. I think everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. So thanks for the everyone for coming for the session today. So today I'm going to talk about a little bit of very timely topic which is very important for any organization nowadays. It is cloud migrations. And today I'm going to give you an idea about how and what are the essential things that you need to understand before you migrate anything and everything from on-premises to the cloud. So as you already know that this is my profile, just to briefly give you an idea, I'm Dileepa Rajapaksa and I work for RIPE, Singapore. So I'm working as a solution architect. And I'm also MVP and Microsoft certified trainer and also certified solution architect. So if you have anything that's you need to follow up with me, you can go to Twitter at DS Rajapaksa and go to LinkedIn and search for this link, or maybe you can search for my name and you can connect with me directly. So just to give you a small brief of my company. So I think you might have an idea about the company a little bit from the video. So the RIPE is actually a cloud first, channel first company. So we actually, our main focus is to bring anything and everything from softwares and solutions and the subscriptions so to the clients and the partners. And basically our vision is to a world without shelfware, and our mission is to provide best platform enablement and 24/7 service, so that customer will also can consume and deliver value from their customer investment. And you can go to ripe.com if you have any thing to know. So RIPE is actually, as I said, cloud first, channel first. Cloud first is we are actually distributing cloud related products such as Azure, and then we actually bringing a channel for our partners to get some businesses and bring some businesses and earn money. And so our base focus is in Asia Pacific, and as I say, this is subscription software focus. And we have more than 2,500 partner ecosystem around the country, around the world in Asia Pacific. And also we have a good consulting and 24/7 support as a service. And also, as I said, our aim, to drive ongoing growth of consumption of software subscriptions, such as Azure and some other subscriptions. So just to get an idea about the goals of this session. So as I said earlier, the primary goal of this session is to, get an idea about migration and how you are going to step into migrations and what are the considerations that you need to take a look when it's come to migrations. And so there are a lot of approaches available when it's come to migrations out there. So mostly and the most popular approaches like rehosting, refactoring, and re-architecturing, and also rebuilding. And so from one of this approach, which approach that you are going to use in order to step into the cloud. And then there are a lot of tools available in order to help up with you with the cloud migration from on-premises to cloud. And if you have any projects that are running on on-premises, how we are going to move that to the cloud without any hassle. And then, of course, at the end, I'm going to give you some migration, post-migration success stories, so to give you an idea about how you can optimize and secure your entire infrastructure. All right. So before we get started, let me give you an idea what is the journey of cloud. So if you're familiar with the cloud technologies and the cloud, so you might remember how the cloud actually begins. So before the cloud actually came into the picture, so people and the businesses needs to actually create their own on-premises infrastructure in order to run their businesses. For an example, let's say that in 90s and early days, if you want to start a business like a e-commerce, so what you had to do, you had to buy on-premises hardware. For an example, servers and internet connections, and basically you need to build your own infrastructure inside your on-premises location. So basically a server environment in a data center. And when you are coming to the cloud little by little, so we started with the infrastructure as a service. So where we actually look into this space. And then we have a lot of container services, and we have platform as a service offerings, serverless, and then we have software as a service offerings available in the cloud. So there are a lot of services available in the cloud. So those are called actually service models. So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. So when you are coming from on-premises environment, so we need to know how and which approach that we need to migrate to the cloud, and why we are actually moving to the cloud. So the easiest and the far most easiest and the most applicable approach for a lot of organization is going with the migrate, what you call as rehost. So basically you bring your entire infrastructure from on-premises, and you are lifting from this infrastructure and shifting it to the cloud. So this is little popular among a lot of all the days of very matured companies, right? And who has their own data center. And other than that, this is application modernization part, and this is migration part. So when it's come to application modernization, if you have very old application and you don't directly need to lift that application from on-premises to on-premises to cloud using infrastructure as a service, so lift and shift approach. So if you don't need to do that, what you can do, you need to take a look at one of these approaches like application modernization. So application modernization has a lot of other different ways of doing that. So one is refactoring, re-architecturing, and rebuilding. So depending on your underlying infrastructure or the architecture, so this is going to be different. So today we are going to look at what are the differences and how we are going to approach the migration strategy. And other than that, not to mention, you already aware of software as a service, services available. And we're going to see how we can actually replace any of the application that you have in on-premises with software as a service application. So that is pretty much of the cloud journey. So you are coming from on-premises, and now we are in the cloud. And how we are moving to the cloud is basically based on migrate or maybe application modernization. So I'm gonna quickly jump over to why you should migrate to the cloud. So there are a lot of reasons, right? So this might be early days of your data center. Let's say that you are starting the business and you on an e-commerce website and you created this kind of data center. It's cool, right? So it's messy, you can see. So now what we are going to do from here, we are going to migrate to the cloud, and you need to understand what are the drawbacks of your data center inside your on-premises environment. All right. So the basically, when it's come to the drawbacks of your data center, so the most important part is actually the cost and money, right? So if you have own infrastructure, if you have your own physical infrastructure, it actually requires a lot of capital in expenditure. As I said earlier, in early days, so you need to buy servers, buy other hardware equipments in order to create your own data center. And then what will happen? You need to put a lot of money, thousands of hundreds of dollars, in order to buy server hardware and set up your own data center. And then the other thing, when you are actually scaling, right? So the business is actually scaling every year. What will happen? You need to update your hardware, right? But the problem is actually when you have your own data center, it is really hard because the space might be limited, your money might be limited. So there is scalability. So other than cost, it is scalability. And also when it's come to other requirements like compliance, so which is very important nowadays. It's about your the data that your users are actually saving inside your application. So when it's come to compliance, in order to get compliance certifications and everything, you have to pay a lot of money. So basically it is going to be very expensive, and it's going to be very expensive requirement. And other than that, there are a lot of reasons why we actually move into the cloud, such as a scalability, as we discussed, and then security concerns, and likewise there are a lot. But the majority of companies, if you look at 90% of the companies in the world, and why they are moving to the cloud is the reason why, because of the two reasons. The first one is actually the cash flow or the money, and the second one is the scalability. And when you are moving to the cloud, there are a lot of benefits when you are hosting it on Azure. So you don't have any hardware to manage, because Microsoft is actually managing it for you. You don't need to worry about purchasing hardware and maintaining your hardware. If there's anything wrong, how you are going to maintain. You don't need to worry about any of them. And then everything is up to date. All the data centers are up to date with the latest hardware, as well as latest operating systems and everything else. And also the cost is very flexible, because you are going to pay as you go. So you are not going anything upfront, and you don't actually have any capital expenditure. So that means you will pay only for monthly basis and pay as you go basis. And then it is going to be, the business is actually going to be based on operational expenses without capital expenses. And other than that, the creating an application and deploying it to the cloud is very faster. So if you wonder, a lot of startups nowadays are very fastly growing and making a lot of money, and a lot of SaaS-based entrepreneurs out there, they are making a lot of money and they are getting rich, because the reason why that, because the faster time to go to the cloud and bringing that to the customer. So that's one of the important part when it's come to the cloud. And also you can keep your cute server names, right? So you can give it the names as you want, right? So VM1, VM2, or whatever the names, right? So just a funny question, right? So obviously, if you look at to the cloud, right? When you are going to the cloud, so basically when you are moving to the cloud, the most important part is actually you can actually focus on your business as well as application. So you don't need to worry about maintaining hardware operations, IT operations inside your organization. You can give a lot of focus into the application development as well as business. So that is the entire idea when it's come to moving to the cloud. So when you are moving to the cloud, someone might think this is actually a technical decision, right? So, but the idea here, this is not really technical, right? So the idea here, when you are moving to the cloud, so the decision is made by your underlying, financials, institutions, and your financial, team, right, in your organization. So that is basically actually related to the business. The core idea of moving to the cloud is business related. And ultimately that when you are, when we actually move to the cloud, we have two questions to ask. So what is driving your business to migrate to the cloud? So what actually reason that you are moving to the cloud, and why it is going to happen now, right? Those are the two questions you need to ask. So remember that some of the businesses, some of the applications are not really need to migrate to the cloud, right? So it depends on these two questions. So why you are going to move to the cloud now, and what is actually driving your business to migrate to the cloud. So that could be different reasons, underlying maintenance cost, and if you look at your data center is actually outdating, something like that. There might be a lot of answers for the first question. And when you are actually moving to the cloud, there are a lot of other core business considerations. As I said earlier, so what we can do, we can achieve operational efficiency by reducing operating expenses, because you are just pay as you go, and you don't have any servers to maintain, right? So your labor cost is going to be a little down, because you don't need to hire a lot of administrators. And other than that, you don't have a lot of other hassles like patching softwares and getting licensing and everything, right? And the time to the market is going to be very reduced because you can very quickly create an application and deploy it to the cloud, then bring that to your users. And also the support for the cost effectiveness and scalability requirement, right? And also, as I said earlier, renewal of your data center hardware or maybe renewal of your licenses is really easy. And other than that, other business content like development and modernization of your application and other things like software end of support. For an example, let's say that you have an application running on Windows Server 2008. So when it is coming to the end of the software, software end of support, what we have to do, you have to actually migrate to the cloud, or maybe you have to upgrade the license or upgrade the operating system. So those are the key considerations when it's come to migrating to the cloud. All right, so now you have an idea why you should actually migrate to the cloud. So I think pretty much what I discussed is actually related to the business requirements, right? So as I said, it's very important that your organization is making a lot of money and profit. So that is one of the most important things that organizations are moving to the cloud. So now we are going to look at how we are going to do that and what are the approaches. So when you actually look at cloud migrations, there are a lot of strategies available. So the strategies are going to be depends on your team, right? So and also your background. So the first strategy, first factor would be like, what is the most pressing needs that you need in your organization or in your application team, and what are the core skills that your team has, and other than that, where our applications and the development life cycle is. So those are some of the factors that are going to depend. So depending on your background of your on your team and your organization, so the approach might be different. So there are about 5 categories of migration strategies. So if you look at this diagram, you can get an idea. So when you have something like a rehost, right, in the first one here, so you are moving it entire infrastructure from on-premises to the cloud. It is related to infrastructure as a service. So what you are doing, whatever the virtual machines running inside your current environment, you are moving it to the cloud directly using lift and shift approach. So also known as rehost. And then other than that, if you have applications running inside your own data center, in your on-premises data center, and you need to move to the cloud, and that is going to be platform as a service, you are going to decide that you are going to move it to the platform as a service of it. And then you need to either consider refactoring or re-architecturing or rebuilding your application. And if you want to replace entire application with a software as a service solution, you need to actually replace entire thing with available software as a service solution. So we'll discuss one by one. And when you're actually rehosting, as I said earlier, so you are not doing anything, you are not changing anything, right, from the on-premises environment. So what you're actually doing, you are migrating your physical servers or maybe virtual machines to the cloud, just as they are. So the idea here you can see in this diagram. So the virtualization and hardware is given by the cloud provider. So Microsoft is providing you virtual machines, and they are taking care of virtualization and hardware. So what we do, we are actually bringing application platform and everything like application data, code, runtime, and then application configurations as it is, and bringing it to the cloud. We just actually rehosting entire infrastructure. So that can be done in 2 different ways. Either if it is a virtual machine running on VHD format in Hyper-V, what you can do, you can actually detach that VHD file with the entire application running inside that VHD. So we are going to remove that from on-premises and then plug that VHD into the cloud. So that is one approach. And the other than that, what we can do, whatever the application running in the on-premises environment, you are going to rehost using one of the approaches inside the cloud. But you are going to use the operating system and underlying operating system to run that application in the cloud using a virtual machine. So basically, there's nothing gonna change when you are doing rehost, and which is very quickly and which is very easy to do. And this is very popular among a lot of matured organizations and very old organization who has thousands of millions of virtual machines running in their infrastructure. And then when they are actually moving to the cloud, they are considering about rehosting. And refactoring is another way of doing it. And remember that rehosting is infrastructure as a service based. And when you are going to refactoring, it is software as platform as a service based. So in this strategy, actually, we have some additional things to do. So basically, if you look at this diagram, so the underlying operating system, application platform, and virtualization and hardware is provided by Microsoft. So what we are going to do, we are going to create app service, right? So basically, if you go and search for Azure app services, so you are going to create an app service plan and app service here, and you are doing application configuration. It could be any kind of application. It is running on C# or ASP.NET or whatever, PHP. And then what you are doing, you are actually updating some configurations and then code as well, right? And then if there's any upgrades that you want to do some refactoring for the application, you do it and update it, and then you are going to bring that to the cloud and host it in the cloud. So here you have some workload to do depending on your application and how old it is. And when you are doing re-architecturing, which is very time consuming because you need to change the architecture entirely. So not like in refactoring. So in re-architecturing, sometimes you need to change the architecture a little bit. So for an example, you have monolithic application, which is running in one virtual machine, and the entire application code in the same virtual machine running inside the same application. And now you want to host it in the cloud in a platform as a service, but you need to make sure that application needs to run and re-architectures using microservices architecture. And then what you have to do, you have to modularize, or you have to go with the modular approach and modularize each and every component in the same application and change it and re-architect it in order to run it in the cloud. So in that case, what you have to do, either if you have application running inside on premises and then it is entirely written, and you have to change a little bit, because at least you have to bring that to Docker containers or Docker images that you are going to run as a microservices. And maybe you might consider about having something like a serverless approach. So because of that, this is going to be a little time consuming than the refactoring. And what you do, you actually change everything in the code and runtime and the application configuration. And this part entirely managed by the customer, right? And the platform as a service offering here, operating system, virtualization hardware is managed by the Microsoft. And here also you can either consider about moving to platform as a service offerings like app services, maybe Kubernetes services and Azure container services, AKAs, and or maybe serverless like functions, Azure functions, and you are modularing all the parts in the architecture. And when you are going to rebuild, so basically you are going to rebuild entire application from the scratch, and you are going to move it to adopt the cloud native pattern. So in that case, so you are going to change everything, and this is entirely consuming a lot of time. And what will happen, you are building it from the ground and transforming your application to in order to support cloud native environment, and then you are going to bring that to the cloud. And the next approach, as I said, replace. So this is where software as a service comes in. So what you are doing, if there's an old application running in your environment, say for an example, there's a CRM application that is running on your on-premises environment, and it is custom made and developed by your internal team, and now it is outdated and it doesn't have much features, and it is really laggy, and then now you want to migrate to the cloud. What you are going to do, you might consider replacement other than refactoring or re-architecturing or maybe rehosting. So this is going to be completely a change to your entire user base as well as the cost. So there's nothing to manage in terms of cost and everything. So what you are doing, you are actually finding solution. For the example that I have given, the CRM or ERP system that running inside your on-premises environment, and now you want a replacement. So you can go for Microsoft Dynamics or maybe anything else, any ERP or CRM system available in the cloud as a software as a service subscription. So what you do, you actually subscribe for particular software as a service application for number of users, maybe number of tenants, something like that, and you are subscribing it and you are paying monthly for that. And there's nothing to worry about, nothing to change, and everything is up to date. The code is done by Microsoft and the provider, right? And the application configurations, entire thing is actually managed by whatever the company that you are getting the software as a service solution from. And what you have to do, you have to transform your applications and data as you want. So there's nothing actually to do in terms of underlying part. So that is also one considerations. Some of the times, some of the organizations are considering about replacement, complete replacement for the entire application, and it depends on your underlying capabilities and the background of your organization. So before we go to the migration, we need to understand what are the 4 steps of migrations. So no matter what are the strategies, you need to make sure that your cloud adoption, right? The migration to the cloud is very easy and it is going to be success. So before migrating to the cloud, we have to do these processes, right? So the first one you need to do is access, right? So you need to assess your environment and make sure that environment is migratable to the cloud, and it is possible to migrate and feasible to migrate to the cloud. And then once you've done the assessment, you have to migrate it to the cloud. And what you can do, you have to use one of the free tools available or maybe paid tools available. And then you are going to migrate that entire thing to the cloud while actually minimizing the downtime. So the assessment is really important when it's come to any environment, because the assessment is giving you an idea whether it is possible to migrate or not. And then after migration done, so you have to actually optimize. So what you can do, you can optimize your environment in cloud by looking at the underlying usage patterns, underlying cost considerations, and the performance and everything else, right? And you can understand whether your on-premises infrastructure that you brought inside to the cloud is actually optimized and it is utilized the most. And then other than that, you need to make sure that you making sure that the security is the first thing, because in order to manage your entire infrastructure, and also other than that, fine tune the management of your cloud environment. So those things are most important when it's come to the cloud migration. So when you are migrating, there are a couple of things in order to discuss. So one of the things is actually what are the replacement from your on-premises to the cloud. So for an example, you need to consider about what is the connectivity, what is the networking, what is the storage, and what are the identity elements that you are going to mimic or use or replace when you are going to the cloud. So when you are in the on-premises environment, so you may have switches, you may have networking, and then other than that, you may have hardware equipments in the on-premises environment. So you need to consider how you are going to use the same kind of architecture in the cloud, and what are the replacement that are available in the cloud. And by establishing actually, virtual data centers in the cloud, so what you are going to do, that you will continue support to your business after the migration without any kind of surprises like downtimes and lags and everything. So the first things first, the identity is really important in order to securely ensure secure access to your entire infrastructure in the cloud. So whatever it is running. And then you need to make sure that there are no malicious attacks and how you are going to control those malicious attacks. So, and then other than that, you need to make sure that you have built-in identity solutions like Azure Active Directory and how you can manage your users using Azure Active Directory, and then how your users are going to log into the cloud environment and do the management. And cloud-based management is actually very important because when it's come to the management between a lot of people inside the organization and bringing a good user experience to the end users. And other than that, the storage is there, the consideration. And when you are moving to the cloud, you need to make sure what are the storage capabilities available in the cloud. So when you are in an on-premises environment, you can use NAS SAN based system, but in the cloud, you are using virtual storage. So in the cloud, there are a lot of storage options available. For an example, in Azure, we have blob storage, table storage, queue storage. Likewise, there are a lot of storages available. Depending on your requirement, we can suggest which storage that you are going to use in the cloud. And many storage types like our blob storage, storage accounts, they have a lot of capabilities like reliable performance, geographical redundancy, zonal redundancy, and disaster recovery, something like that. So those are very important that when you're actually having good resiliency among your application. And other than that, the next very important part is networking. So networking is very important when it comes to data center. That is how your entire data center applications and everything is connected to your users. And you need to consider how you are going to move to the cloud, and when you are moving to the cloud, how you are going to create that entire similar kind of data center, virtual network inside the cloud. For an example, which subnet that you are going to put this machine, which virtual network that you are going to put that machine, which kind of subnet that is going to be, what are the IP addresses, those are needs to be very considerably designed. And then when you are moving to the network, virtual networks, your physical boundary is actually going to be subnets, virtual networks. Those are going to be in Azure. And then so the application can continually use network topology, whatever it is, right? So in the cloud. And then other than that, the connectivity is really important, right? So the application is now migrated. Let's say that your application is running on the cloud. How your end user is going to connect is the other important part. So is it via site-to-site VPN or maybe point-to-site VPN, right? Or else is it just through the public internet using IP address, a public IP, or maybe domain name, domain name, right? So that is how you are going to design which kind of connectivity that you need when you are moving to the cloud. So if it is an organization who wants a VPN, and then you can decide which VPN that you are going to use. And there are some considerations when you are going to the cloud. So some might have heard about Microsoft has this something called Azure Express Route. So Azure Express Route is kind of a private networking capability which is available and which is very expensive. But the most importantly, it has a lot of performance as well as security. So when you are moving a heavy lot of data to the cloud, you might have you might have to consider about how we are going to lift that data from the on-premises to the cloud. So one of the things that you need to consider, what channel that you are going to move it to the cloud. So that is not easy to move petabyte of data from on-premises environment to the cloud very quickly. So what we have to do, we have to consider about having a good connection or maybe a channel, right? Just like Azure Express Route. So let's say that you want to move to the cloud from on-prem to Azure, and then you can purchase Express Route, which is private connection, which is just like a lease line. And then you are going to connect that private connection with your on-premises environment, and you are putting that data to the cloud and uploading that data to the cloud, petabytes of data. And then what you can do without any security concerns, with good security and lower latency, with low latency, and also very fast approach, you can move entire data center data to the cloud. So this is one of the good ways to do, but it depends on your organization's storage and the storage capabilities and the capacity of your virtual machines or application and data. And the other than that, there's another very interesting part in Azure. So you may have heard about data box. So a data box is really a physical thing. So for an example, if you have petabytes of data, so if you are not capable of purchasing Express Route, which is really expensive, what you can do, you can actually get a data box, which is a hardware equipment, in order to upload entire infrastructure data from your on premises and ship it to the data center that you want. So just to give you an idea, these are the available options for data box. So in Azure, we have data box and data box disk and data box heavy, as well as data box gateway. So forget about this one. So these are the most important parts. So the data box is kind of a rugged device which has 100 terabytes of capacity to use. And then data box disk is just a SSD, which is around 8 terabytes, and it is USB SATA interface. And look at this, and every other option has AES 256-bit encryption, and some of them have around 128-bit encryption. And then other than that, if you have petabytes of data in order to move to the cloud, then there's another option called data box heavy, which is really big, and it is also ruggedized, and nothing gonna happen even a bomb is crashed, right? Nothing gonna happen even it's go to the deep of the sea, right? So what you do, you actually bring that something like this from the Azure data center. So, and what you are doing, you are ordering something like this, and then you are going to put that data and ship it back to the data center. And from the data center, they are going to extract that data and put that into the cloud environment without any problem. So most important part is everything is securely encrypted, and anyone in the data center cannot see anything inside the data, and it is secure. So only you can see, because you are getting the key from the Azure portal. So this is kind of a way that it is going to work, right? For an example, let's say this is your Azure data center, and from Azure data center that you want to move to the cloud. What you are doing, actually, you are going to the portal and you are ordering some kind of ruggedized device, right? So what will happen, there are some process here it's going to be, and you actually bring that ruggedized device, data box disk or data box heavy. You bring that, and it is going to ship by the data center, and then you put that data and then ship back to the data center. And then what will happen, it is going to put that data to the Azure data center, and it is going to run as smoothly as you want. So that's how we can actually move that data if you don't have a channel. So now you might have the question answered. If you have the question, if there are petabytes of data, how we are going to move to the cloud? Very simple solution. Either use Express Route, or maybe you can use data box disk heavy or data box. And let's move to the access part. So from the 4 steps that for the migration. So in order to begin the migration, as I said, you need to do and get an understanding how feasible your migration is to be success in the cloud. So basically, you need to consider about how many servers and how many virtual machines that you need in the cloud, and what are the virtual machine types, and what is the virtual machine series or virtual machine configurations that you need. So those things you need to understand before you migrate to the cloud, and you need to get an idea whether it will be succeeded or not. And assessment is divided up to a couple of steps. So what you do, you discover on-premises applications and servers, and then identify dependencies, analyze configurations, and also you plan for the cost. The most important part is actually analyzing the cost, because as I said earlier, other than all these 3 components for a business, the most important part is this. Even though these 3 things are going to be success, the configurations and the technical specifications are going to be compatible with the cloud. If the cost is going to be higher than what is in the data center, definitely they are not going to move to the cloud. So that is very important. So discovering on-premises applications and servers is going to be a very simple task, right? So, but it is not that much easier without any tools available. So whether you have a hypervisor running virtual, Hyper-V, Microsoft Hyper-V in your data center, or maybe it could be VMware or vSphere. It doesn't matter what kind of virtual machines that is running. What you can do an assessment and then get an idea how much or what are the configurations, what are the usages, what are the usage patterns, applications that you can actually move to the cloud, and also the cost considerations. And when we are doing the assessment, as I said, you have to understand what are the server dependencies. So for an example, let's say one application is actually running in one virtual machine, another application is running in another virtual machine, and you need to make sure that you have two dependencies. Let's say the virtual machine one is depending on the other virtual machine, and that needs to be really important, because if we are moving virtual machine 2 and virtual machine 2 is dependent on virtual machine 1, and then if we move the virtual machine 2 at the beginning, and at the end we are going to move to the virtual machine 1 to the cloud, what will happen? So there's a dependency broken, right? So we need to make sure prioritizing all these machines, all these application dependencies, and how we are going to map into the cloud, and it is really important. So identifying these dependencies is really important, depending on your environment. And then you can analyze the configuration. So what configurations that you need to run on top of the cloud? It could be operating system configuration. It could be underlying hardware configurations. So depending on your configuration style, you have to analyze whether it is going to fit for the cloud or not. And then most importantly, the planning cost, right? So you need to understand which virtual machine type in cloud is going to match with virtual machine inside my on-premises environment, and how much is it going to be cost in cloud, and how much it is going to cost in on-prem environment, and you are going to do side-to-side comparison, which is cheaper. So sometimes it is going to be cheaper, sometimes it is going to be very expensive in the cloud, depending on your current situation in the on-premises environment. And other than that, you need to make sure, remember, when you are moving to the cloud, so whatever the applications, virtual machines that move to the cloud is actually at least 90% utilized, right? So in a on-premises environment, what will happen? So most of the times the virtual machines and everything, are actually over provisions, and most of the time they are underutilized. So less than 20% utilized, right? So the CPU RAM is going to be underutilized. But you need to make sure that whatever you are moving to the cloud should be overutilized, or maybe it's in the fit, right? And sometimes I have seen in my life, right, a lot of customers and partners, what they are doing, they are looking at the physical configurations of their on-premises server and map that exact same physical configurations to the VMs in Azure. So that is not going to work at all, right? So sometimes it is going to work, but sometimes it is not going to work. Some scenarios. So let's say, for an example, in your on-premises environment, you have a virtual machine with 2 cores and 4 GB RAM, and you are going to use the same kind of virtual machine with the 2 core and 2 cores and 4 GB RAM in the virtual machine in the Azure. So sometimes it is going to work, sometimes not, as I say. So it depends on the underlying utilization of the cloud application. So the scenario that I said, 2 cores and 4 GB RAM, if you look at that, if you actually analyze the data, so in the on-premises environment, how much of utilization that VM is actually getting, so you might be able to identify sometimes it is over provisions. Say, for an example, the 2 cores are running, but each and every 2 cores are actually they utilize only average of 20%. But if you are doing the same in the cloud, right, so what will happen? You are wasting money. So in that case, you can consider of moving to something like a different kind of virtual machine series to make sure that you are giving the right fit for the machine that you have on premise. And talking about the tools, right? So when you are doing assessment, there are a lot of tools available. So I'll show you some demos, what tools are available for you to do assessment and do migration. So many tools are available, in Azure. So especially Azure Migrate is really important and really great tool that I have used a lot of times. And it could be, VMware, or it could be, your on-premises environment is VMware hypervisor, right? Or maybe physical servers. So depending on your, type of on-premises infrastructure, so you have to decide which tool that you are going to use. So assessment tools are actually doing kind of a assessment on your entire infrastructure and gather some data based on historical performance, right? So like CPU usage, memory usage, or maybe storage usage, and map them to the equivalent Azure virtual machines that is available. So it is giving you the technical and business reporting, right? So I'll show you a couple of screenshots how it is going to be shown at the end of the assessment. And so as I said, the tools for assessment, as I said, Azure Migrate, I'm going to show this in a couple of times, and then Azure Migration Support. So Azure Migrate is a very best tool in Azure Portal, and then Azure Migration Support is giving you, the partner support, right? So something like us from RIPE, what we do, we help you with, giving you with the migration support, right? And then other than that, if you are running anything in on-premises environment, like let's say Windows Server, and if you own software as a, software assurance subscriptions with software assurance licenses with the Windows Server, what you can do, you can use as a hybrid benefit, and where you can cut the cost of licensing when it's come to the cloud. So you actually pay less when you have, as a hybrid offering, and if you own your own licensing at the moment. And other than that, there are some other tools like Azure Data Migration Assistance and Application Migration Assistant. So I'll show you them in a little bit of time. And once you've done the assessment, you need to do migrate it to the cloud, right? In this step, actually, there are a lot of ways that you can move, data physically from your on-premises environment to the cloud. So as I said earlier, you need to make sure that whether you are doing rehosting, refactoring, or re-architecturing, or maybe rebuilding, or maybe replacing entire thing. So as I said, in many cases, organization will actually will start with lift and shift approach because it is easier and less time consuming. So as discussed earlier, lift and shift approach is really simple. What you do, you actually get entire thing from your own environment, on-premises environment, and then bringing it to the cloud, and then hosting it back again in the cloud. So mostly those are going to be virtual machines, and then most of the times these virtual machines are going to be replicated to the cloud in a real time. So just to give you an idea, right, how the real-time replication happens. So what you do, you actually get entire data from your on-premises data center. At the same time, you are getting these virtual machine images and hosting it in the cloud, right? And what you are doing until still the on-premises data center is running, but there's no disconnect between the to the end users. And once you actually migrate it to the cloud, you do a testing part, and then what you are doing, you are going to fail and disconnect whatever in the on-premises infrastructure. So that way you can reduce the downtime, and you can make sure that everything in the on-premises is up to date and sync with the cloud. And this is just like copying and pasting and keeping the same copy in the two sides. And once all this done, you are going to actually discard on-premises data center. So as I said, you need to make sure that everything actually works fine before we cut over, right, from the on-premises data center. So there are a lot of tools that are available, right? Just like Azure has, Azure site recovery. So we can use site recover, something like a site recovery in order to do the test failover and do the test thing, and then check whether everything is working fine in the cloud, just like in the on-premises environment. So for the migration, there are a lot of tools, as I said, Azure Site Recovery, and then this is entirely for migrating physical servers from virtual machines from on-premises to the Azure. And then what will happen in Azure Site Recovery? You are actually supporting custom replications and isolated testing and final migration cutover. And then Azure Data Migration Services. So you are using, if you are using databases in your on-premise environment, you can use data migration services in order to migrate an existing application database running on SQL Server, Oracle DB, or whatever. And after you finish the migration, you have to optimize. So optimization is really important in order in order to make sure that you are getting the correct performance as well as cost benefits. So as I said earlier, you need to make sure that you are getting the benefits of entire cloud and saving the money. So in order to optimize in Azure, we have a lot of tools available. So Azure cost management is really important when it's come to optimization of cost. So other than that, there's another component called Azure Advisor. So what you can do using Advisor, you can get advices based on your usage patterns, and in order to reduce the cost. So Azure Cost Management is really providing you insights of the current infrastructure running in the cloud, and giving you insights of what are running good and what are running bad. And you can, based on the data that is given, you can decide how you are going to take the next step. And after that, after migration is done, you need to make sure that your entire infrastructure is secured and managed. So in order to securely manage your entire infrastructure, there are a lot of tools available. So just like Azure Security Center and Azure Log Analytics, as well as Azure Monitor. And other than that, you might remember the first speaker talked about something called Azure Sentinel. So we can integrate Sentinel to this portion in order to make sure that you are actually doing a good secure and security management in your entire cloud infrastructure. So that's basically how it is going to be happen. So let me jump into the demo and show you the tools available. So let's quickly jump into my Azure portal. So if you go to Azure portal, you can search here for Azure Migrate. So first one, I'm going to show you Azure Migrate. This is Azure Migrate. All right. So if you go to Azure Migrate, so you can see here there are a couple of migration goals available. So if you are moving servers, you can go ahead with this. If you are moving databases, you can go ahead with this. It could be VDI images, it could be web applications, or maybe Databox. All right. So Databox, that's what I talked about earlier. And let's go with the servers, right? So if you go with servers, you can see at the moment I have created a migration service, right? So let me delete this and show you how easy it is to do it. Let me delete current migration.
Dileepa, I think the time is not enough.
Okay, all right. So I'll quickly, run through it, right?
Okay.
I think I cannot be, I cannot do a big, demo, right? So basically, when you create something like, something like this, right? Azure Migrate application, right? So Azure Migrate resource, what will happen? I'll just quickly go through. This is currently what I have. It is really simple to create. So what you do, you go inside this, and what you can do, you can click this one, right? If you want to do migration assessment, right, for your entire infrastructure. What you have to do, you have to click here, and then it will give you all the information. What are the tools available? So there are third-party tools are also available. These are third-party tools that are available. And what you can do, you can click here. You can click discover. You can download this file called as a virtual, migration appliance. And you can, this is kind of a virtual machine with the OVE file. You can install and run this virtual machine inside your data center. in your VMware or whatever the data center. So it depends on your hypervisor, right? So if it is Hyper-V, it is VHD file. So if it is not virtualized, you can download this and you run this and then do the assessment, right? Other than that, you can input the information from here, from your infrastructure by manually. And then what you can do, and after that done, you will get a report here. So I'll show you a screenshot of a report, right? So just to give you an idea, so this is giving you a number of virtual machines available, what are how many number of virtual machines profile, and which machines are compatible with the Azure and which are not compatible. And then other than that, the cost consideration, it is giving a big kind of a big report at the end, and which virtual machines are going to be cost this much, and which machine that you can use in Azure. And yep, so other than that, if you go to database migrations, so there's this tool, you can download it from here. So something called data migration assistant. You can quickly create a migration project. So, and if it is a SQL database that target and SQL Server, and you can create a migration assessment very quickly. You can put your server name here if it is your local server, and you can connect, and then you can get the databases from your Azure SQL, and then you can add, and you can start assessment. So it will do an assessment and give you an idea whether it is possible to migrate that entire thing to the cloud or not. And once that is done, you can use migrations in order to do the migration part. And yeah, other than that, if you have web applications in order to migrate to the cloud, you can go to this website, app migrate, app service migration, and put that to your site. Let's say that I have this site running on another cloud platform, and I'm assessing. All right, so this is publicly available, and it is giving you whether this is possible to move to the cloud or not. So you can see your site framework and hosting model is fully supported for migration or app service. And if it is supported, you can go download, and you can download the migration assistant tool and do your application migration directly. And those are the support tools available. Other than that, you can go to Databox, right? And you can create and apply a Databox and do get delivered your Databox storage and migrate entire data to the cloud. And here you can see all the options available. You can go to Azure portal and create migration vault, and you can see every option is available in order to go to the cloud. So I think because we don't have much time, right? So I'm gonna quickly jump and finish off my session. So if you have any questions, if you need to learn a lot, you can go to Microsoft Docs, right, and get an idea about Azure Migrate. And there are nice documentation available. Even I learn a lot from my Azure Migrate documentation. And if you want to learn a little bit more information and get certifications, you can go to Microsoft Learn and learn everything about cloud. So that is pretty much what I have. And I think if you have any questions, it's time to ask. And if not, here's my connection information, right? Because we are running out of time. So you can follow me on Twitter. You can go to LinkedIn and give me a message. I'll help you with whatever the questions that you have. So any questions? Let me check if I can answer any questions quickly. It's my let me check. Okay, premature architecture. Okay, no question it seems. If you have any questions, let me know. So you have my connection information, right? So that's pretty much it. All right, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dileepa. So I think let's come to an end. Oh yeah, there's an announcement to make is that I think our global Azure bootcamp is coming back. So for those who are interested, can contact our speakers today also. Some of them are talking in the bootcamp. Yeah. So thanks for staying with us tonight or today, depends on where you are. Thanks Dileepa again. Thanks Priyanka and Eng Soon for giving us such a detailed talk. So yeah, for those who haven't tried Azure, please try it soon, and hope you stay safe in this difficult period. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Timothy. Also.
Lin.
Thank Thank you. See you
Thank
all again next
you.
time.
See you, everyone. Thank you, Dileepa.
Thank you, Timothy. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Shilin.